Sie hören Sport und Musik.
Das Spiel ist aus! Deutschland ist Weltmeister!
Mario Götze! Mario Götze!
Tonight, whether you call it football, or soccer, a German American and a German in America dare to call it Fußball. German foosball from an American point of view. Let's add some buns to that hamburger and join them for the Schnitzel Boys Deutschland Hour.
Oh, the graphics are a little long. That's on me.
That's good. We have the music. That's
So
stuff.
that was the buns on your hamburger one.
The buns and the hamburger. That's
let's
right.
put some sauerkraut in your hot dog. That was the
that sounds fake. Sounds
Yeah.
kind of dirty. They both sound a little dirty, but it's okay.
Yeah, we're a pretty rated R after night podcast.
For
Wouldn't you
sure.
say
For
that?
sure. Yes. As much as well. Anyway, yeah, that's the new Open. Very nice. Nice work there.
Thank you.
And here we are. And here we are in the Deutschland Hour, and
we got big news this week. I was like, this is going to be a chiller week. We just got one game to talk about, but no, German soccer exploded over the weekend.
Well,
but not German, but German sports exploded over the weekend.
German sport, because our soccer team may suck, but we now are a basketball nation.
Hell yeah, baby! We won the FIBA World Cup. We beat USA in the semis and beat Serbia in
the final. Yes.
Serbia,
Incredible.
which is, Eastern Europe has a great basketball tradition, right? Vlade Divac is from around there somewhere. Vlade Divac, the star of Trabi Goes to Hollywood, which I believe we talked about last week, right? Did we ever talk about that? Thomas
Nope.
Kutchuk movie? Well,
I mean, we talked about it. I don't think we talked about it on the show. But
I have so many other stuff to talk about. Daniel Young, thank you very much. Granted, although it's such a big deal in Germany, I don't really know the actual context of the FIBA World Cup. Like I was asking, does LeBron James play in that? I thought it was the Olympics was the bigger tournament.
No, I mean it's similar. I guess they'd send an NBA team. They don't send
college.
It's not the All Stars. Yeah, well, it used to be college, but no, it's an NBA team. They had a pretty good. I mean, there's two ways to look at this here, right? Like, I mean, there's of course the American perspective, like the Stephen A. Smith or whatever, who are like, oh, anytime America loses, that means they suck. They failed,
right.
Or the team was bad or didn't. That's not necessarily the case. The NBA has become a lot more international. There's people in other countries that play well basketball, but Germany has not traditionally been one of those. Like,
No.
I don't think we've ever had a sniff at this, like even mildly. But somehow this particular group, Dennis Schroeder, who's been a good NBA player for several years, and I guess they had a couple, Franz Wagner and other, a bunch of very tall white dudes, and Dennis Schroeder to pull it all together at point guard was enough to hold off the U.S. And then in the final to Serbia, which also I think was favored to win. So my mother called me and celebrated, and that means it's a big deal because my mother doesn't do sports unless something big happens like that. Yeah. So
I had a second cousin also send me a video clip of them celebrating and be like, "We did it, yay!" or whatever. And it was very random. And I was like, "Cool, that's fun." I know it's kind of news over here. Like, it was on the Twitter sphere, the X sphere.
No, people differently. People here, the narrative is, how come
we should have won?
American team was, because the American team then also lost the bronze medal game to Canada, so there was definitely something going on. But just amazing. Like, also nice to see those guys celebrate. They clearly did not expect to win it all, so it's always fun. And we've been kind of bemoaning the general malaise that's German sports these days. So it's nice to have this kind of pop out of nowhere as a pleasant surprise. Yeah, good
The
times.
coach-
Especially then. A couple hours later, we very unceremoniously got dismantled by Japan in soccer.
in soccer. So the big news is Hansi Flick is flicked. Flick raus.
The big soccer
Uh,
news. Yes.
The big soccer news, and I believe it was, I forgot who it was, Build or Kicker or some other website, offered the new candidates, and on the top of their list was a Canadian Finnish man I've never heard of, and he was the head coach of the German basketball team. Whoever the heck the head coach of the German basketball team
Oh, so they're just
was
going to pick him.
recently
They're just
picked.
going to pick him.
to be the new head. So
Yeah.
Germany's head coach was a Canadian dude. So that's interesting. And he is comedically being touted as the next coach of the German national team. All right, let's start with a quiz, Bjorn. I got a quiz
Can't
for you.
do any worse than Hansi Flick. Yeah, okay.
How many head coaches have England had in their history, do you think? Give or take.
Like starting 19th
When they
century.
invented football to now.
How many?
Yeah.
15.
15. Okay, good guess. How many head coaches have Italy had since they invented football until now?
27.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. 41 is the answer to that.
Oh, okay.
How many head coaches has Brazil had since they invented football?
Brazil has had 21. No,
1, 2,
25.
3,
25.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Carlo Ancelotti is their 40th coach.
Wow, okay.
England has only had 19.
How many did I say?
You said
15?
15.
Okay.
So that was pretty close.
All right.
Okay, how many coaches has Germany had in their history since they invented football?
Well, I think I can name all the German
Right.
coaches. So there was I know there was Otto Nerz was the first
Right.
one. He was and then Sepp Herberger after him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Helmut Schön after him.
Mm-hmm. And you
then-
remember Helmut Schön, right? That's like
I do remember
you have
Helmut
memories of
Schön
him?
a little bit. Like I remember him, being sort of a presence
Mhm.
in my. And then Jupp Derwal, who was not very well liked, his former assistant took over after him, and he kind of, I don't know if he was fired, but he was not extended, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then after Derwal, it was Franz Beckenbauer took over for those couple of World Cups.
Yeah, getting a
then-
final in one, winning the other.
And then it was Berti Vogts after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's when I came in the fold. I started
Okay.
following Germany when Berti Vogts.
and then it was Erich Ribbeck, former assistant, very briefly. That did not go well at all. And then
right.
Rudi
Considered-
Völler had to step in after him.
Christoph Daum was
After
found to
Christoph
be a
Daum didn't
junkie.
get the job.
Right.
So Rudi Völler then stepped in for the first time. And then it was Klinsmann after that.
mm-hmm.
And then it was Jogi Löw after that. And then it was Hansi Flick after that. And now it's Rudi Völler again. How many is that?
This says 11. With this, I didn't count what you just said, but what you said is correct.
Okay.
It says Germany's had 11 coaches, significantly
Yeah,
fewer,
we're a
and-
conservative country. We're not like
and it's the only country where 4 coaches have 100 caps each.
And I
Herberger,
think
Schön,
and I think
Vogts,
no one was ever officially fired like mid I think they always every other time the turnover was always after a tournament, or it was sort of like,
Erik
even the
is
people
considered to be the big failure, right? Everyone's like, everyone was nuts.
But it was
He bought
after
Mateos, but he did his
even
2-year contract, and then it was done. Not like
and
he
then
was
it
fired.
was done.
Done.
So no, this is the first time anyone's ever gotten fired, like just like that, like after a game. This was terrible. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's
and really,
so that's
I mean,
it.
and really, this just speaks to, they should have let him go after the World Cup, really. And so, I mean, that was the same with Yogi Löw. They kept him too long after he got knocked out of the World Cup. It's like, that's just a good, you should just turn the page. And they didn't, and it really, I mean, it's sort of hard to overstate what a letdown this was, right? Like if when he came on, it was like he was the obvious pick, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It was like unanimous. Like, yeah, he did great at Bayern. He knows it was like he's the
player,
the logical choice, player coach.
Bayern
was a conservative guy, not a big tinkerer necessarily, perfect for the national team, blah blah blah. It's like nobody would have predicted, myself included, would have predicted that this would go so wrong, but it really did. And the World Cup,
Flick go down as the worst German coach of all time?
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, at this point, I think
he was only head coach he started when the Euros ended, which was summer of 2021, right? Because Löw was still coach during the Euros, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, so it was after the fall. Yeah, it was like
and he had 13 months, right, from the one summer through to the World Cup, pretty much. Or how long was that? He had a little bit, 18 months or something, 15 months.
Yeah, it was like a year plus, like 15 months.
Yeah, it's a year and so it's 15 months. His entire then he's been coached since then. So I guess they gave him an extra year after the World Cup. But so his tenure, I guess, is around the same length. Yeah, it's about 2 years, right? Because it's fall of 2023. He was appointed in fall of 2021. So he had 2 years and he had one tournament, just like Liebeck did. Liebeck had 2 years and he had one tournament, Euro 2000. And Hansi Flick had the 2022 Qatar. Who was and everyone considers Erich Liebeck the worst sort of coach of all time, probably more so than Jupp Heynckes. And I wonder, do you think Flick now replaces Erich Liebeck as like Flick is now the worst? Who had the worst tenure, Liebeck or Flick?
How did that Euro go? I don't even remember the.
It was. I remember. It was my first Euros. We lost to England 1-0. That was the big game. We lost. We tied Hungary, I think 1-1. That was very disappointing. And then we lost to Portugal 3-0 in that third group game, and we were eliminated. We scored one goal, let 5 go past us, and we were eliminated. I think we were last place.
I mean, I would say the World Cup, I don't think we were all that terrible. I thought we were, people kept saying how we were like leading all the teams in terms of chance generation, blah, blah, blah. Like I think we were more unlucky than terrible at the World Cup. And obviously the big win of Spain over Costa Rica sort of skewed the goal differential thing. Right. So we were more unfortunate than terrible. But since then, it's been it's just been awful after that.
So the first World Cup game was losing to Japan. I wouldn't say unlucky. Japan beat us. And it was that Japan game.
Yeah, but they were generated a lot of chances, and then and kind of gave up two soft goals on individual mistakes, and like a lot of, in general, like generated enough to win the game, but didn't put it in. Then we had that tie. Then we had that tie against Spain. That was quite a good, we played pretty well, and
then that bonkers 4-2 against Costa
Rica. And then we won. We beat Costa Rica, but not by enough, not by enough goals.
But then here we are a year later, and we played with Japan again.
Well, I mean, that's what I was. I think I was texting you. I was texting you. I was like, during the World Cup, it just felt like an upset.
Right.
But now it just felt like, no, that team is legit better. Like there's just
Right.
it's not like, oh my God,
you'd
we
be
lost
right.
to Japan. It was
You'd be
like,
right.
no,
They're
they
a better
are,
team.
they are just better. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hansi Flick was fired, and that surprised me because that is unprecedented. German, like we talked about, Germany's very conservative. They also don't pick. They pick interesting coaches. Like Hansi Flick was an interesting pick. It was a good pick. Jürgen Klinsmann, very creative pick. He had no coaching experience when he took over the national team. You know, the picks are interesting. And now,
well, I think at that point, it was a job
no one wanted,
that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
You know, like
Arsene Wenger turned it down. I remember that vividly. He was the guy they wanted, and he said no, thank you. And I think they offered. They offered to Otmar Hitzfeld. Otmar Hitzfeld said no, thank you. And then Klinsmann is like, I'll do it, and then the rest is history.
And he only had it for 2 years too. So
right.
Like he was. But then Jogi Löw took over, and he, probably deserved most of the credit for whatever happened.
And Jogi Löw is such an interesting pick. He would never have gotten hired. He was some obscure Stuttgart coach. Who the heck was he? And he became one of Germany's most decorated coaches. So the Germans do it differently. We do a little bit differently. That's why this is very
well. They traditionally have promoted from within. It's like you have these guys, and then their assistants get it, and
that was Hansi. He was the old assistant.
Yeah, he was
German tradition. Right. But he became the new Joop Derval, where it's like, well,
he also had a very successful stint at Bayern in between,
right.
unlike any of these other. So
right.
he had the institutional knowledge, but also had proven himself on the club level, which made him such a no-brainer. Which made him such a no-brainer. But it's like.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of puzzling how it went so wrong. But since the World Cup, all these friendlies have just been disastrous. And he hasn't settled on his starting lineup. The midfield is a complete mess. I mean, his defenders keep letting him down. I mean, it's not. Yeah. He didn't tell right. Robin Gosens to hand the ball over in midfield I mean, that's not.
And that fourth goal.
Flick's fault.
The defenders are statues. The Japanese players in the middle of the box, uncovered, uncut, sloppy header, bounced in, and I'm like, cover the guy, defend the guy.
What was interesting, I thought, is that I read today that Ilkay Gundogan feels bad.
He was just named captain, yeah.
That he feels responsible for getting, and that was the one thing about this Japan game where I was like, oh, finally Gundogan has the key to the midfield. That was the
right.
thing that was so puzzling for all this time, where he had like him and Kimmich, and he had him play so deep, and really not he didn't. It seemed like he couldn't figure out what to do with Gundogan, who was basically
Germany's best player, right?
Arguably,
arguably, yeah.
He had a key role at the best club team around, right. And so that was just weird how he couldn't. And I guess that was the one thing that seemed good about the Japan set. I mean, there was a lot. There was a lot to like. There was
the lineup was great when that lineup came out.
Lineup was good. Like, Florian Wirtz was looking good. He seems to have found himself. And for me, the big thing was that Gundogan was allowed to play much higher, and
Kimmich was right back. Schlotterbeck was left back.
Yeah, Kimmich was right back. We've sort of given up on Kimmich at the 6, and so there were a lot of there's a lot of positives, but it's like the team just doesn't. It's just not hanging together. The defense, just so many defensive mistakes, and we have to see the Schlotterbeck just puzzles me as a. Also, it's like the three center back. I don't know. There was just a lot of he switched to another. The defensive lineup was different again.
Mm-hmm.
We are hosting the Euro. That's why this is happening.
Oh.
The country is hosting the Euro in 9 months. There was just no more. It was just no more messing around. Like it had to get It had to get better. They promised a big overhaul. They promised a whole new lineup. What that meant was bringing Thomas Müller back and not
He was so ineffective. I didn't even know he was on the field. And the only bright spot, especially in that first half, was Leroy Sané. Remember, he was pretty on point.
Yeah, he was good.
Leroy Sané was actually creating opportunities, and Serge Gnabry, I haven't seen anything from him in months. I don't know what he's been doing. Thomas Müller off the bench, ineffective. Leon Goretzka was left off the lineup. He's probably laughing his ass off right now. But like
Kai Havertz, I mean, Füllkrug is hurt, so Kai Havertz played the 9.
As ineffective as he is in Arsenal. There's something up with our players right now. Our players, they're lacking confidence.
But it's not. It's on paper. It's not a bad lineup. On paper, you think.
Yeah, I saw that lineup. I'm like, hell yeah, this is it. If I were playing Football Manager, this is the lineup I would choose. And it goes to show you that being good at Football Manager doesn't mean you're good at real football, because the lineup failed miserably. Tony Rudiger has got some mistakes in him. I don't know. I don't want to blame. Anyway, I don't know where to. So 3 tournaments in a row, very poor. The Euros, we did make it to the round of 16 or whatever, but other than that Portugal game, was a pretty poor tournament for us, right? And the 2018 was disaster. And yeah, so I watched the All or Nothing documentary. The big news this weekend.
Oh, don't tell me. I haven't seen it.
I won't. Well, I have observations. Talk about the observations. And then when you see it again, we'll talk about it again. But the All or Nothing documentary was great. It takes you behind the scenes of the whole Qatar process. I would love to be taken behind the scenes of the 2018 process. So I was a little more curious about what happened there. But the reality is we've had 3 really bad tournaments. So just can't figure it out. The German national team is in a terrible period right now. I came in the fold in the 90s. And in the 90s, the German national team was bad. Not the worst they've ever been, but pretty bad. And it was frustrating for me to watch them and have all the Brazils and the Italys and even the Englands just be better, and Germany just a shadow of the form itself. And I was glad they rebooted and became great again. I was glad I could see that. I saw them win a World Cup. But this period they're in now is arguably worse than them in the 90s, right? In the 90s, they won a Euros. In the 90s, they made it to the quarters. The last 3 tournaments, they can't even get out of the group stage.
Yeah, two World Cups out of the group stage. That's unprecedented. That's never happened.
Yeah, I guess I'm being hard, because in the 90s, they won a World Cup and a Euros. So it couldn't have been that bad for the German.
1990, yeah, they won a World Cup. 94 and 98,
right?
They got bounced in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Which, that's, I mean, the US would sign up for that, getting bounced out of the quarterfinals 2 World Cups in a row. But yeah, for us it was disappointing.
But then there was
we have been historically, this is the context we always have to put this in compared to every other country. We've been spoiled rotten by our national team. Like, we just don't, that just doesn't happen. We don't get bounced out of the and so this is a historic lull, and we have to see how. I think the player pool is not quite as, but I mean, I think the team is just not. It's not flowing. It's not. The team is not more than the sum of its parts. The team is less than the sum of its parts.
I think it's a big confidence crisis,
and that's a problem. And so.
I'm surprised. Are you as surprised at me that it was not Oliver Bierhoff that was the big issue?
You thought that was going to fix it? The Rudi Völler hotels.com login was going to be better than.
Turns out that almost had nothing to do with it. Hey, what about that? Oliver Bierhoff.
But here we are again with Rudi Völler, and that went well in 2002. Legendary.
It did not go well in 2004, though.
He did well, but 2000. You don't. I mean, I guess you were like that. That was a memorable for me. Well, I mean, the summer of 2002 was a big year for me. I met my wife that summer, and so there was a lot going on in my life that made it a happy summer for me. But the World Cup was a big thing. And that German team under Rudi Völler, who took over because there was nobody else, who was going to do it, and that team was not going to be good. Nobody thought they would do anything, and they made a run to the final, and we were singing Rudi Völler's name every chance we got, and so and then in 2004 it didn't go as well. I mean,
do you know what country I was living in during the summer of 2002?
Brazil, I think. Yeah, so you had an even better time.
I was there. I was there when they won the final, and it was crazy. The whole country's at the same party. Now, granted, I was rooting for the other team, but still, it was a very interesting experience.
I bet. Yeah, and I mean that was obviously well deserved and never in doubt. But up to then, it was a fun tournament for us. So now we have Rudi Völler again, and perhaps I don't know. Is that going to be a short thing, or is he going to stick around for for this tournament?
That would help with the German coaching numbers. We still only had 11 because we had one guy
only
twice.
had 11 because he hasn't got. Now,
so I would love to offer some thought. Please go. I was going to say.
Well, I can tell you before you offer your thoughts. I can tell you what Lothar Matthäus thinks.
Yeah, that's right. He did. But I think I agree with his thoughts, though. Tell me, you tell people what he said.
Yeah, Lothar Matthäus thinks it should be Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp's not ready now. He's got a job, so he thinks that he should take over after the Euros, and up to the Euros they should get Matthias Sammer, who is basically hasn't coached, right?
No, in years he's a sport director. Yeah.
He's like the sport director behind the scenes, but he could pitch in. He would be okay with Rudi Völler doing it. Rudi Völler says he feels a duty to step in here. So that's what I thought you at some point were saying, and somebody else on Twitter was saying, "Oh, it's going to be Nagelsmann for sure." That doesn't seem like it's happening.
Well, let's talk about it. Okay.
But you tell me what you think.
I'll save my thoughts for later. Let's talk about. So Flick was fired. Actually, let's do this in a row. Let's talk about Flick for a little bit, and then when it's done, let's talk future. Great. Let's talk coaches because that's an interesting discussion. Okay. So I watched the All for Nothing documentary, which was also part of the weekend. Right. It was a little controversial, right? On Twitter, it was shared that he did this whole thing where he wanted them to fly together like geese and be geese and geese around and all that stuff, which is hilarious to me because it was right out of the Mighty Ducks 2 playbook. Have you ever seen the kids' movies, Mighty Ducks 2? Great movies. Hockey players are told to be ducks and they quack and they fly together. Ducks fly together. And 100% during this documentary, right before the World Cup, Hansi Flick airs this documentary of a bunch of geese flying around, and the camera just pans around to all the players just scratching their head and like putting their hands in their face, being like, "The fuck is that?" essentially. And then it goes to Hansi. He's like, "The reason I showed that to you is because that's you guys. Obviously, geese and you are unrelated. However, they fly together and they're fluid. That's you guys. Be the geese." The whole tournament kept talking about being the geese, and I don't think the players bought into that. I don't think anybody bought into that.
Clearly not.
So that's observation 1. Okay, I have a few observations. I hope these aren't spoilers.
Oh, you got a list? We have a list of observations.
Long list.
Okay.
First and foremost, is Kimmich toxic? Is he a toxic presence in the locker room? It has surprised me. But in the first episode, you see him fight with not one, but 2 players. Him and Zula went at it, and him and Rudiger went at it. Kimmich gives them notes. He tells them how to play, and they don't like it. And Kimmich isn't the team captain. So that was very interesting for me to observe. They shook hands, and afterwards they were interviewed. They're like, "Oh yeah, whatever. That's what Yaz was like. It's not a big deal." They played it off, but I'm like, I don't know if I love that. I don't know if Kimmich should be giving notes. And then when Hansi Flick comes in, Kimmich and Zula are literally they're about to go to blows. They're like fighting in the locker room, and Hansi Flick comes in. He does nothing. He doesn't. I think he eventually walks over and be like, "All right, guys, settle it," or whatever. But my general census of this whole thing, the consensus, is that Hansi Flick was very hands-off and very passive in general. Like the whole geese video, he wasn't very passionate in how he spoke. Like, I think the reason I say confidence crisis is because I think there was a lack of man motivating, and Hansi Flick was not the best motivator, which surprises me. He also kept bringing up this. During team meetings, he kept saying that Germany doesn't believe in you. He kept saying that over and over again. And I'm like, you really shouldn't say that. I don't know. I'm not saying stop telling them that. Like, it's psychologically damaging. Could also lead to the lack of confidence. On 2 different occasions, Hansi Flick is like, listen, the Germans are not backing you guys. He just said that to them because this was during Qatar, and at home they were boycotting, and it was wintertime, and the fan fest were empty because it was pretty cold and they didn't really want to come. And I'm just like, is this some sort of reverse psychology thing going on? They don't really need to know that. They should be told there are fans. They were fans. 10 million people tuned. They were fans. It's unfair to tell them that the Germans weren't behind them. I thought that was a little odd. After the Japan game, Schlotterbeck did that mistake at the end of the game, right? Where he let the guy smoked him on the side of Japan.
Beaten by Bochum legend Takuma Sano, who scored again on Saturday.
Yesterday, right around Saturday.
Just loves playing against Germany.
So they're in the video room looking at the analysis, and at the end, Hansi Flick shows that play, and it's like, what do we think happened here? Anybody? Schlotti? They call him Schlotti. Schlotti, do you have something to say? And it zooms to Schlotti, and he just sits there quietly, he says nothing. Then Thomas Muller speaks up. He's like, I think it's a case of philosophy. And just brings up that philosophy is something about philosophy or something. And then that was the end of it. Then they moved on. And I'm just like, what the hell? I don't know. Again, I'm not a coach. But shouldn't Schlotterbeck have had to explain himself? Or Hansi should have been like, Schlotti, what did you, like, you need to do better than this. You know what I mean? Like a hammer, some sort of accountability needs to happen. And they deflected and they got out of it again. There's just no accountability. What else do I have here? There was a few things. And then in practice the next day, Schlotterbeck broke Nicholas Füllkrug's nose at a practice match. So he defended way harder at the practice match than he did in the real match. So the whole time was like, Schlotterbeck! In my mind, I'm like, Schlotterbeck! Damn you, Schlotterbeck!
He's a mystery, that guy. I don't understand why he has that job.
Me neither. Robin Gosens all the way. I don't know what the heck Schlotterbeck's doing there. Well, where does Stefan Raum play? I don't know. I just don't. Schlotterbeck needs to stop being that thing. The other thing that impressed me was they focused on this Dr. Stefan Knapp, who's a video analyst. And it was so fun. He sits in the very top of the stadium, films the game, takes notes, and then at halftime runs his ass down the steps to get to the room. And during halftime at the World Cup, he played video of the first half, and they had a video analysis session in the dressing room at halftime. Isn't that crazy? I assumed, I didn't think that. I assumed
these
the video
days you see all the people
the
with
iPads,
the iPads, and sure, yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know how effective that is. So those are just the other thoughts was Germany picked their camp to be isolated, and Hansi Flick had to drive 3 hours one way every time during a press conference, and he hated it every time. It's like, well, you guys planned that, you scheduled that.
Well, and that was Bierhoff, man. That was the Bierhoff problem.
That's maybe the one criticism Bierhoff gets. And then after the game they lost to Japan, Bierhoff just sits them all down. He's like, I am beyond disappointed with you guys. This was terrible. But the thing is, they're all very passive in how they speak. And the players are just sitting there with their heads down like little 20. They're all young boys. Like a school classroom full of boys where they did wrong, but no one really wants to be accountable for it. It was just really weird vibes. And I was like, you know what? This kind of sheds light on a lot. So if I had to fix the German national team, you need to watch it. You need to watch it.
I'm gonna, for sure. I mean, once it came out, I was like, oh, I got to watch it. But then it's like, it's also going to be pretty painful. So I wasn't like, oh, can't wait. But I'm totally going to watch it this week.
I'll tell you, I watched it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was cool just for me to see the behind the scenes a little bit. But so based on just that documentary, a little bit of insight, if I had to fix Germany, I would hire a coach who's just that 100% confirmed that Jurgen Klopp would be the perfect new national
somebody
coach.
More animated.
animated, a man motivator, a guy who has a better psychological angle with his players. Like they even interviewed the team psychologist a few times, and he offered thoughts, and I was just like, I don't know if I agree with the things he's saying, because it all contributes to it's a psychology problem. The quality is there. All right, Japan is a good team, but they're not 4-1 against us good quality wise. We have quality players. The strategy is whatever. The strategy, they talk strategy over and over again. The strategy is fine. I think it boils down to the players.
No, I agree. There, as a group, there's something broken. Yeah,
something going on. So they need a coach who's a man motivator. They also don't need to be super overcoached. They are a smart team. Like the coaching level was fine, but the strategy was sound. But they also like if I was the head coach and Kimmich was giving notes to one of the defenders, I would shut him down immediately. Tell him to shut the F up, stay in his lane, because he got smoked on the right wing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want my players to be giving each other notes. Maybe that's a foosball thing. Maybe it's a German
well, I guess
thing.
it all depends.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it all depends.
Yeah. You know, and then the captain, Manuel Neuer, was our captain, and also he says almost nothing's very passive. And no disrespect to Manuel Neuer, but
I mean, is that just a cultural thing? Is that just a bunch of Germans hanging out, though?
That's the thing. If you watch it, let me know. That's how I want your take.
I'll have to check it out.
It reminded me of the Dutch culture, because the Dutch get in trouble because they're also very high soccer IQ and they love to go at each other. You know, the Dutch have gotten in trouble for that. Would you agree? Like, sometimes the national teams they're each other's worst enemies.
Have they? Okay, yeah.
I know Schreider and like Robin went at each other in like 2010 or something. I don't know. So when I think of that, I saw.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily
like, that going on.
I don't think that's necessarily always bad. I think they don't always. People, obviously, if you get bounced out of the group stage, then you're like, oh, everything's terrible. But like, I think a lot of teams have discontent among themselves and can still be successful. I don't think they all need to be friends and constantly get along to be successful necessarily. But
my thing is that Hansi, like, there's also after when they lost one of the games or when they're out of the World Cup, they showed video, and Hansi's like, he said nothing. He said the players like, all right, what's wrong with that? Like, you have them speak, and I'm like, you know what, Hansi, let's get a little more active. You're a little too passive.
You need to earn your money.
So like what you're saying, like a player deserves criticism, of course, but shouldn't it? It's the head coach's job. Hansi needs to be like,
Hansi needs to be in people's faces,
right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, it seemed yeah. I'm excited to see it. I'm gonna watch it this week. I'll tell you what I think.
The only time he raised his voice was during the halftime of the Costa Rica game, and he finally spoke to them. He said, "You're making them a better team. You're making them this good. That's what you're doing to them." Or like he really laid into them. And that was the first time someone laid into them the entire time. And it seems like a lot of decisions are being made for psychological reasons, and it's just not working. So I think,
well, yeah.
Maybe Rudi Völler is the answer to that. I don't know. He seems to me, that's not what Rudi Völler's like. Rudi Völler, I think, very much will just tell you how
he's going to be direct. Yeah. I mean, he's we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, yeah, I'm not always one to call for the coach's head or like that's the answer to everything. But in this case, I mean, it really couldn't go on. These were some extremely almost all the games since the World Cup were pretty dispiriting overall.
Right. And I would say, I mean, the bigger issue, this started in 2017, right? I noticed when the FIFA Confederations, Summer of Confederations Cup, the C team goes out there, destroys, they beat, they win. It's like Germany's the deepest country in the world. It's amazing, right? We win the Confed Cup in 2017 with Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Ever since then, Germany has never been the same. There was that year where the things were weird in the Saudi Arabia friendly. Then the World Cup happened, and we really stunk at the World Cup. And it was this weird vibe. And here we are 6 years later, and the stink is never – the vibe is the same. That's sort of been my long-term vision. Hansi came in to fix it, and he didn't. He just extended the vibe. He just extended it all. So
Yeah.
All right, so here are the new coaches.
Oh,
so
tell
now
me.
that's done. Who done it, right? You get your case files. Hansi Flick is dead. He's gone. Who's next? We got Rudi Völler. We got Matthias Sommer. But the real list is Julian Nagelsmann gets touted around. Oliver Glasner is getting touted around. Which is very interesting to me. Thomas Strunz. I get my Strunz and my Kunz mixed up. Let me make
Oh
sure.
yeah, you had a whole thing about that.
Yeah, it's Thomas Strunz, right? Is he our guy? Thomas Strunz is Strunz. Maybe Thomas. No. This is okay. Thomas Strunz is not the guy. He's the other guy. Kuntz is his name.
Okay.
Stefan Kuntz. Who's the youth Germany team guy? And his name is Kuntz.
Stefan Kuntz.
Stefan Kuntz. He is the head coach of Turkey, but he was the long German youth team coach. He, for whatever reason, is getting. He's always on the top of the list. They must like him. Some with Stefan Kuntz, where he's on the list. So Stefan Kuntz is on the list. So we got Kuntz, we got Glasner, we got Nagelsmann, and then I'm trying to think who else was touted. Any other names you remember being touted around?
That's all I've heard.
And then Matthias to the summer thing. So
your club, yeah.
We need to get Jurgen Klopp. I know he's just starting with Liverpool. I know he's a Liverpool coach. Realistically, it would be this summer, not before that. That's true. But the reality is we need to get our hands on Jurgen Klopp somehow. And if someone forced me to make a decision, I would have Stefan Kuntz take over. He seems to be some sort of national team horse whisperer that people like, as an interim for 9 months. His project is Euro 2024. That's the job. And then if he does well, keep him. But he doesn't do well, splash the cash, money talks, bullshit walks. Hire Jurgen Klopp this summer.
Does he want to do it? Do we have any?
Pay him twice what he makes now. And
does he want to do it? Force him to do it.
I don't know.
Why he could have any. I think it's time for him. Probably his Liverpool time could come to an end. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see how it goes this year. But then he probably would have a lot of options. I don't know. If he wants to do great, yeah. If he wants to do it, amazing.
Well, let's say Jurgen Klopp is unavailable, which is very real. Who's the next coach? Who do you hire?
It's not going to be Ralf Rangnick. Ralf Rangnick already said that he's not going to do it. When nobody, I don't think anybody was like, "Oh, we should get." He was like, he said he wasn't going to do it after nobody said that he should do it. Anyway,
right?
Yeah, I think Zama would be good if he's into it. I think.
Would he? His last coaching gig was 2004, I think.
But he was good. He was good then, and the national. And the national team is its own thing. I mean, I think I don't know. He always struck me as a competent and independent guy. So I don't know. He wouldn't have occurred to me because he hasn't been coaching for this long. But when I heard, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I don't know. Rudi Völler is up there in years, but also. Could be a decent choice. He's done this kind of thing before successfully. Other than that, I don't have a ton of
Streich. I want to throw Streich's name in there. Freiburg.
Gerd Streich. Well, I mean, they're going to get a club. They've already said they're not going to get any kind of double duty person.
Right.
They're not going to get somebody who has a club job to do this on the side or whatever, which I think that makes sense. I guess these club coaches, I don't know. It seems like what they want to do. It's like, yeah, I mean, sure, he would be good. I could imagine Streich being good. I don't know if Julian Nagelsmann would not be good. It seems sort of odd an odd fit sort of temperamentally. Like he doesn't seem like that would necessarily be his thing. But
He's also too young for me.
It doesn't feel right somehow. Like I agree with that in terms of his whole temperament and kind of the gravitas of the job or whatnot. But like, I don't know, he could be fine too.
It's a big job, right? Big pressure. We're hosting the Euros
It's
in
not
9
harder.
months.
It's not harder than Bayern. You know, anybody who's coached Bayern.
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? It's like
felt the pressure.
The whole national team program is kind of hinging on what's going on right now.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also now expectations are pretty low. Like, I mean, I think that's like Klinsmann benefited from that in 2006 too. That people were like, well, this team's kind of in shambles, and we're hosting this big tournament. If we're not embarrassing ourselves, we're gonna be fine. We're into it. So there's also less pressure in some ways because now expectations are low.
All right. So let's pretend Julian Nagelsmann gets appointed as coach tomorrow. How do you feel about that? Are you like, all right, let's go?
Sure.
Who do you want to wake up tomorrow morning and read on Kicker that they've appointed X as head coach? What article do you want to read?
I mean, not Klinsmann. That's the one thing I
don't think he's on the short list. I don't think he's. I
don't think so either. But I think he's gonna get fired from Korea. Yeah. So, other than that, all the people we named, I could be okay with it because we don't really know. I feel extremely humbled by this whole situation because I would have bet. Not my house, maybe, but like I was convinced Hansi Flick was going to do well and he was going to turn this whole thing around and be very successful. And so having been proven so wrong, I'm kind of at a loss as to what exactly the problem is and who's going to fix it. So I don't feel like I have a good sense of like, oh, this person would be great. And I'm open to all the people that we listed. I think are good options. And
if Oliver Glasner gets the job,
oh yeah, Oliver Glasner,
it'll be the first.
I'm not. He's not. Yeah, I don't think he's a good choice.
Well, he'd be the first foreigner to ever have the job. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with non-German people coaching the team. That's fine. I don't think they would do that. And you're a big Oliver Glasner fan. I'm not as big a fan. I don't rate him as highly, and so I don't think he'd be the choice.
I think he just confirmed that Oliver Glasner is the choice. So, we read that Oliver Glasner has taken over the reins of the.
Perhaps, and then I'll be wrong again. He'll win the Euro next summer, and I will eat my. I mean, I'm spectacularly bad at predicting things, so. So there's.
I mean, my theory is that they lack motivation. They need a guy to just kick him in the butt and be like, "You guys need to stop sucking," or find a way to motivate them properly. And I think Oliver Glasner probably is good at that. Maybe.
Stop sucking, people.
Well, he got criticized.
Kick the ball in the goal.
He's a small club manager. He's not very collaborative. That was sort of his big criticism, right? And I guess they'll struggle, especially as Woody Fuller is sort of the team manager, But he seems to be a dude who just who tells people the way it is. I don't know. Maybe not as passive as Hansi Flick is. I don't 100% know. I'm not there behind the scenes. But, So I just want someone who's a little. It might be Rudy Fuller, man. Maybe Rudy Fuller is going to take us over through the summer. Maybe I don't know.
I guess a lot now hinges on this game against France on Tuesday.
How do you feel about this, by the way? When the Japan game was over, Hansi Flick hosted an open practice in Wolfsburg. He had an event after the game where he hosted an open practice in front of a bunch of fans. They had him do that after the game. And then they fired him after that event.
I mean, what are they going to do? They have to
fire him before the event.
Okay.
Well, I mean, after, it was like 2 days later, like the next day or whatever. They had this event, and then Derek Ray on Twitter was like, Hansi Flick is running the training. So, and then he was fired the next day. So it's like, well, that's for shitty on the guy. But anyway.
Well, I don't know.
Anywho.
You got the job until you don't. I mean, he said, yeah. Yep, that's it, huh?
Well, yeah.
Hansi's flicked.
Hansi is flicked. I definitely would be into some sort of interim, and I want Jurgen Klopp over the summer. I think to me that is ideal.
Jurgen Klopp would be great. I don't think we have any, it's always like, I mean, you can assume, but you can assume that they always the DFB is not going to pay them as much as Liverpool is. So it's always something like he has to want to do it. And if he does, then good for him. If not, we don't know. Game. The big game is on Friday. Bayern München is playing Bayer Leverkusen, second against first in the Bundesliga. It's a big one. Are Leverkusen for real? They have to prove it on the road at Bayern.
Very cool. That's not what I want to talk about right now, though. Although that's a big game.
That's
game.
my little preview.
Well, that is a good preview. We got the big game coming up, which is interesting because so many like Florian Wirtz and like all the players part of that game are coming from this really crazy, depressing national team break. So I wonder if that'll have a psychological effect on them in any way. Maybe it'll be freeing. Who knows? But that's not what I want to. I want to end this episode on a light note. We had a heavy discussion. The German national team program is flailing. The DFB have no answers. They got to solve it. They got to figure it out. And we're waiting with anticipation to see what the deal is. But that's not what I want to talk about. I had myself a little day trip to one of my favorite stores. About an hour and a half south of me is a little place called the Old World Village, I think. It's got a little nice deli, and it's got a beer hall. I should go there for a German national team one of these days. And they also just opened up a vintage toy store in that same market. So it's like a market with German stuff and old video game and toy stuff. It's like my two interests put in one market. But anyway, I had myself a little trip to the market. So I'd love to introduce make an official segment. It's been unofficial in the past. It's time to be official. This segment is...
Let's hear it.
About
Knusper, knabber, knackig, frisch, funny frisch.
Freunde, das ist Ketchup.
Kinderüberraschung erfüllt. 3 Wünsche auf einmal.
Nutella. Der Morgen macht den Tag.
Haribo macht Kinder froh.
Und Erwachsene ebenso.
Ich bin ja echt Fan von Bier und Bratwurst.
There we go. How it plays in loop. That is Quatsching about Nash.
Quatsching about Nash. Talking about food, yeah?
Talking about food. I went to German Deli. I bought a Bauernbrot.
Ooh.
Delicious thing. A Bauernbrot. I bought a
heavy
fiber.
Heavy dose of fiber.
I need it. I bought an Erdbeer.
I'm glad to hear.
I bought an Erdbeer-Torte. It was delicious. I brought a Berliner, which was less delicious.
Cake. Berliner jelly donut.
I put it in the fridge. I shouldn't have done that, but the cake was delicious. They also have Sachertorte. I didn't buy one, but there was one there.
Ooh, too heavy.
Amazing stuff. But then what I did buy was I bought a new type of marzipan. Lindt makes marzipan.
Lindt marzipan.
Give me a second. Let me fix my thing here. Virtual background is none. Okay, cool. Lindt makes a pretty decent marzipan.
Oh yeah,
You're not a marzipan guy.
I think this has come up before. Yeah, I'm not a marzipan guy myself.
Got my
yeah. That's the one I'm familiar with.
That's the real stuff. And then I bought Funny Frisch, which Bastian Schweinsteiger and Manuel Neuer have been spokesmen for a long time. They have different types of chips.
Ah, yes.
I got something called
Erdnuss Flippies.
Erdnuss Flippies, which I never really had before.
No, I'm not familiar.
They taste like little peanut butter things. What is that? What does that say right there?
Mit frisch gemahlenen Erdnüssen von Oeltje. I guess Oeltje is a peanut company. These are freshly cracked, freshly ground peanuts.
So I knew that's kind of what it said, but in my mind, with my German Americanness in my lack. I was like, Gemahlin, freshly drawn peanuts. It's like Gemahlin.
Oh, Gemahlin. Oh no, Marlin. The like drawing is without an H. Yeah.
But this was they also had some onion rings and stuff. They had Pinatencreme, was crazy. But this is the big
Pinatencreme. This was the one when you texted me, blew my mind because I had not thought of Pinatencreme. But that's like, it's like, I guess the closest thing is Nivea, right? They make this like very thick Nivea lotion that they can buy. Too. They can buy here. You can buy that in America. This sort of thick lotion that you can put on, you know, if you have a boo-boo or whatever. The Pinatencreme is a version of that, but it's even more like sort of medicinally smelling, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's better, right? They don't really have that here. Like it's like a Vicks Vapor Rub, but
I mean, I think it's a little bit like the magic spray that they use in soccer. It's like you just put something on and it's like, you know, it heals because somebody's like taking care of you.
Well, they had Pinatencreme. Maybe I'll buy a vial next time to see what I remember it using as a kid. And my sister and mom stressed when they go to Germany, they always buy a tub because they're really stressed by it. But the big thing is, I love currywurst and currysoße. Hela has apparently released a new little.
This is a new version of the currywurst sauce that we've been recommending.
Yeah, I think what we have is the old school ketchup.
The brown, the brown bottle is a little off-putting in color, I would say, just off the bat.
I think it's the color of the new mix or whatever. So I had this the other day. Yeah, it's like you're buying a bottle of poo-poo, right?
I mean, the old mix also was kind of brown, but the bottle was red, and I think that works better. It's like you don't feel, So how was it? You said you had it. How was it?
Really, really good. Because I'm very hesitant with new stuff, and so this is not a ketchup. This is a Soße. Apparently, they're advertising this as like the all-in-one. But you just need this, like, you know, because when you go to Currywurstbude, they have the curry ketchup, and I think they spice a little bit sometimes, and they mix.
Yeah, they put a little curry on top.
Put a little curry on top. This is like, no, you just need this. So I had this with some French fries, and it was the curry ketchup, but with a little bit more of a tomatoey, ketchup-y texture to it, if that makes sense. A little bit more of a texture to it. And it was it. I was like, dang, this is it. This is like, I could make a sausage and fries and just cover it in this stuff, and it's going to be a pretty dang authentic currywurst. So, thumbs up if you ever find this in a market near you.
All right.
Currywurst also leicht pikant in the brown bottle. Maybe in New York they have it at the World Market. That's where I used to buy it there. Yeah, so that was just a little update on I went to the German deli, got myself some food I'm excited about. And that was the inaugural Quatsching about Nacht.
Freunde, das ist Ketchup.
Kinderüberraschung erfüllt. 3 Wünsche auf einmal.
Nutella, der Morgen macht den Tag.
Haribo macht Kinder froh.
Und Erwachsene ebenso.
Ich bin ja echt Fan von Bier und Bratwurst.
Well done, well done. They have this on Amazon, the brown bottle currywurst sauce. It's available.
Are you going to give it a try?
I'm going to give it a try. I mean, I'm due for, I think my current bottle, which is red in color, is winding down. So I think I'm probably in the market for a replacement. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot.
Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me if
I could pour it. If the bottle is too off-putting, I can just pour it into the old red one.
Yeah. Trick yourself. All right, cool. So
fantastic.
Any last thoughts?
I don't have any last thoughts. It's 11:15.
Yeah,
is the German? Are we going to be a good? Are we going to be a good soccer country again, or are we now a basketball nation? We will find out.
Or are we?
It's up to Rudi Völler on Tuesday to give us a sense.
Es gibt nur ein Rudi Völler.
Ein Rudi Völler. Es gibt nur
ein Rudi Völler. All right. See you all next week. We'll see how Germany does against France. We'll see the Bayern game, and we'll see you all then. Tschüss.
Tschüss. Good night.